Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Kozloski. I'm the VP of Professional Services and Cybersecurity over at the Winslow Technology Group. I am joined today by Steve, and I cannot pronounce his last name, but an awesome colleague, longtime partner of WTG. Uh, he's the president founder of Secure Network Technology. Today, we're going to talk about identifying security gaps through pen testing and remediation. So today's session is all about pen testing. What the bad guys are up to, give you a little update on that, and talk about what you can do about it, during a pen test and after a pen test. So this is episode 1 in our Cybersecurity Awareness Month series. So yes, this is happening just before October, and Cybersecurity Awareness Month technically is October, but that's okay. This is episode 1. Stay tuned for episode 2, 3, and 4. As a bonus to this, if you're collecting CPEs for your CISSP or something along those lines for attending this, we are more than happy to provide proof of attendance if needed for that too. So thanks for joining us, and make sure you join us for episode 2, 3, and 4 of the series. Really meant to provide a bunch of education, give you an update in terms of the current cybersecurity landscape. So today, I'm going to give you just a really brief overview of the Winslow Technology Group, our approach to cybersecurity, and then I'm going to introduce Steve. He is a president and one of the founders of Secure Network Technology, and he's going to talk about what the bad guys are up to, the importance of pen testing, and some different steps you can take to really fortify your security. After that, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we help people after a pen test, so remediation services and different options for ongoing kind of co-managed services to really complement your pen testing practice. Towards the end of this, we'll have a Q&A and wrap up. So we got a lot packed into the half hour, which is awesome. So thank you again for joining us this morning. A little bit about the Winslow Technology Group. So we are headquartered in Waltham, Massachusetts. We have offices in New York City, Charlotte, and Washington, D.C. We have accounts and people from Maine through the Carolinas and way out in Western Pennsylvania. So we have a fair amount of East Coast coverage. We specialize in data center, desktop, cybersecurity, professional services, networking, and cloud. So a lot there. We are a full service shop, if you will. We have co-managed services branded as our Northstar MS managed service offering. I'm going to talk a little bit about how that falls into this. We have a full suite of cybersecurity solutions and services. So pen testing, we're going to talk about that today. And we work very, very closely with Secure Network and Steve and his team with Kevin and Sarah over there. A really awesome group of really, really smart people that do just a fantastic job with this. We have a bunch of network solutions from, network design and architecture, security, certainly cloud. And our real goal is to maintain true to our customers, right? So we use passion, expertise, and outcomes as our kind of main pillars here, and customers are always first. So our goal is customer satisfaction is number one. A lot of the products and services that we offer today, come from our customer base too. So we love a two-way channel with customers. Love hearing from you and providing valuable services. Our employees, awesome part of this. We have a real awesome delivery team of professional service engineers, project managers, and managed service engineers, solution architects, your account executives, and back office. We have a really awesome team here at the Winslow Technology Group. Really proud of everything we do. We have awesome partnerships too. So Secure Network is certainly right at the top of the list there. So Steve and his team, Sarah, Kevin, the rest of them, really, really awesome partnership with Secure Network. We do a bunch of community outreach too. So community is really important to the Winslow Technology Group. And last but certainly not least, our investors. Someone's got to fund the ship, as they say. And we like making our investors happy too. But customers are always first. At WTG, we leverage the NIST Cybersecurity Framework Core to basically be the blueprint for our cybersecurity products and solutions and services, right? So you're identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. This bit of an eye chart graphic here provides like a really nice overlay of the services and products that we offer within the cybersecurity portfolio. So today we're going to focus on pen testing and our professional services, mostly in the context of remediation, but we do offer full, SOC as a service, advanced EDR, a whole bunch of cool stuff, even helping you configure things like snapshot technology on your storage arrays for rapid recovery, and a whole bunch of other even advanced bundled services and solutions to help you out there. So lot going on here. Feel free to speak up and ask. We're always happy to do some one-on-one consulting post webinar. So a couple of statistics kind of like leading into the discussion today. So these are some stats that we pulled from a variety of different reports here. So did you know that 46% of all cyber breaches impact businesses with fewer than 1,000 employees? So that's a pretty staggering statistic. So that means like, there's more small and medium businesses than there are large businesses, right? So you're certainly a target there. And I think everyone kind of knows that right now. Specifically, 61% of SMBs, were the actual target of a cyber attack in 2021. And here's like a really interesting statistic. If you keep the top two, in context, if you will, 87% of small businesses surveyed have customer data that could be compromised in attack, right? So it could be, confidential data. It could be PCI compliant data. It could be just PII in general, could be HIPAA type stuff, right? But point being is that most of you, most small, medium businesses have some version of customer data that could be compromised. And then interestingly enough, in this same survey, 51% of small businesses don't believe they really have any or effective cybersecurity measures in place. So one of the great ways to start is with figuring out kind of like where you stand, as our CTO Rick Gowan will say. So a pen test or vulnerability assessment is a really great place to get started. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Steve. And as I've known Steve for many, many years, and I still cannot pronounce his last name. And I don't know anyone who can. So we may have a special award for someone who can pronounce Steve's last name. So Steve, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Secure Network?
Sure. So Steve Stasiukonis, and I think hopefully I'm saying that correctly as well.
Good enough for me.
Good enough. But doing this for like essentially since 1997, going I think 28 years. Started the company by actually writing a software program to find vulnerable systems. Soon after that, companies just found out that there was a possibility that they could get hit. Became an incident response business, and it was a really interesting thing because back around 2002, nobody knew where to call, so they called us, and it was an education we got like none other. Back then, there wasn't colleges or there weren't boot camps, and there even RSA wasn't around at that time. So learning from the adversary was really something that was an eye opener for us. Made us really good pen testers, made us great security consultants and engineers, because obviously you're learning from the adversary. And then speaking of the adversary, Matt, I guess what we're going to share is some of the stuff that we find from the trenches, and some of the IR and the intel guys that I have are giving us some data to share with your folks out there. So I guess let's talk about some cyber incidents and about getting ready for seeing more. So unfortunately, we've seen a lot of things happen in the last few months, and I'm telling you right now, it's been mayhem. There's been an exploit through an application called MoveIt2, which is a secure FTP app. This thing had obviously a problem with it, and it was discovered by some guys out of Klop, which are some Russian threat actors, very well known for ransomware activity, and they have hit everybody and their brother with this exploit. Literally, the big consulting firms have been hit, household names. Then it spread to other groups like Lockbit, some guys at Arvin, the other guys at Vice Society. All these groups like at Alpha Locker are leveraging it. So over the last few months, we have seen numerous companies get hit, and it's opened Pandora's box because every threat actor across the globe now says, wow, if MoveIt2 has it, perhaps there's a weakness within some of the other tools that are out there. So we're seeing that activity right now. Now, for those who don't understand it, your worst day is when you get compromised. And if anybody's ever gone through it, I will tell you it is horrible. I've had CEOs, CIOs, CFOs literally weeping on calls and not understanding what they have to do next. And it's terrible. And how this whole thing starts is, somebody will probably roll into your office and they'll say, listen, nothing works. And then the only file that's visible is going to be a text file that instructs you or your management to go to an onion link. And this is an actual note off of a group called Hive. Hive's been taken down by a lot of the law enforcement agencies out there across the globe. But ultimately, the instructions are telling you, hey, this is pretty much it. Your entire network has been shut down as a result of encrypted contents, and things aren't going to work. And ultimately what happens is that onion link is going to give you a place to go on the dark web. You're going to have a unique identifier with a login, a unique password, because that's how they track all their victims. This is happening in such large magnitude that that's how they're keeping track of who they have to talk to about negotiating a ransom. And here's the unfortunate thing. The minute you log into that environment, you're going to see your demands, but there's going to be a clock that's going to start. They're going to say, you got to pay us in, let's say, 36 hours, 48 hours. You don't pay us in 48 hours, we double the ransom. And if there's so much time goes by, they triple the ransom. And at some point, things are going to get worse. But ultimately, they're very in control, and they have guidelines, and they're going to tell you what they want you to do and not do. And they don't want you to call the cops. They don't want you to talk to the FBI. They don't want you to negotiate. They're going to they're going to basically, give you the decryptor and the things that you need to get your data back. So ultimately, they're doing this now. They'll get into your environment. They stay inside there for an extended period of time. We're talking months, maybe a year. And then at some point, they're going to strike. And when they strike, they're going to encrypt your content, but they're also going to exfiltrate your data. And that's been the huge problem that's been happening in today's world. Your data is going to get stolen. A good example is this school district in Los Angeles made the news. It's been out there, hit national news. And then this is the wall of shame of a group called Vice Society. So you go to Vice Society's wall of shame, you've logged in with your username and password, you click on the documents, and next thing you know, you see all of your information sitting there. You're going to see contract, you're going to see all sorts of financial information. They've even got other sorts of documentation buried into those. Passports, SQL databases. This one says secret confidential. And this is out there for anybody to view. And that's kind of the kick in the teeth where these guys are really saying, hey, listen, we don't just stop your network from working. We've exposed your content. So pay us a ransom to, once again, get your stuff back, but also to destroy this stuff. And that's been the frightening part. And that's what a lot of companies go through. So how could it get any worse? Well, I'll share with you. Having your encryption or having your data encrypted is bad. It's really bad, but it does get worse because threat actors now have realized that what they can do is basically make more money off of your data. So now, if you don't pay the ransom for the data that's been exfiltrated, groups like Marketo and there's other dark web sites that are out there, dark markets, that do nothing but sell data. And these are victims out there that perhaps didn't pay that ransom. And you'll see that all their data is for sale. They'll negotiate it. When it says full dump, that means that they got the username and password as well. So you get the whole package, the whole experience. What happens is you want to buy this company's information, knock yourself out. You want to buy the usernames and passwords of the individuals that work there, by all means. And if you're that type of company, perhaps that's valuable to you. But unfortunately, these places do exist. There's Marketo, there's Industrial Spy, there's Deep Web Leaks, there's all sorts of groups that are out there. So just think about the transaction that has just occurred. You've walked into your office, your data is encrypted, your network's down. You have to deal with a threat actor that's in control of your network. You hope to have the cyber insurance or the tools to resurrect your business, but now you have to deal with the aftermath of your data being listed on the internet or wherever it is on the dark web, essentially available for anybody else to see. How could it get any worse? I'll tell you how it gets worse. Threat groups like this group right here called Lorenz, they actually have a key and they'll sell it. And they'll say, listen, here's the data that we have to the institution. And by the way, they didn't pay for the destruction of it. And by the way, we're also selling a back door. And you'll see with this group at Lorenz, they'll have access to the internal network. They'll provide you all sorts of instructions on it. And it's unfortunate because the other groups are kind of following this mantra and they're saying, okay, hey, let's just make matters worse and perhaps they'll pay now. So it's unfortunate, but once again, they're just stepping up their game. They're kind of making that knee-jerk reaction so that you're going to pay them regardless. And unfortunately, they're making money every step of the way. So the bad guys are getting bolder too, and the threat actors that are out there are growing in leaps and bounds, and unfortunately we're seeing it. The guys like DarkSide, REvil, Clop Leaks, Alpha Locker, Vice Society, the list goes on and on. It's like 100 some of them. I can't even keep them straight. And they'll go up and down, they go offline, they come back. But it's an interesting problem they have. They have an employment issue, and they're trying to franchise groups that are part of their organization to become more efficient. So they're starting a program, much like McDonald's and Burger King, will they say, hey, come on board. We'll give you 10 to 30% based upon whatever value you bring to the attack matrix of what we have and the victims that pay us. And it's incredibly lucrative. So they've got this type of like marketing now that's occurring within their forums or their walls of shame or their sites on the dark web. And believe it or not, people are joining and they're getting larger because the activity that we're seeing is getting greater and greater. We also have job boards on the dark web now. So these guys out here are like a freelancing site for hackers, and threat actors are going to this and saying, hey, I have skills. So, they're targeting to make this site the best freelancing site for hackers. So if you have skills in like cracking AD, or you have access into like a network's perimeter, or you're an expert in spear phishing, these guys will say, park your creds out here with what you have, and perhaps somebody will get back to you. So it's really frightening because they're leveraging what they have out there on the dark web to recruit and promote this type of behavior. Now, if you don't have to, if you want to rent a hacker, I see this all over the dark web, and there were these guys, there's about 20 of these groups that I see, and they're putting themselves out there. I wonder if this stuff is real. I've never communicated with them, but if you look at how it's written, it seems rather interesting. They're very articulate, they're smart, but clearly they have skills, and they even have an hourly rate, or what they'll say is that we'll take a percentage of whatever the take is from your victim. So if you want to buy skills, that's one thing. If you want to rent skills, that's another. And clearly we're seeing stuff like this get larger and larger. The popularity of it's growing, so you got to wonder how much of this stuff is actually legit. The other thing that the threat actors are using, and the things that we're seeing now, is their crimeware is getting better and better. So whatever you're using at the office, Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, all those different tools, the bad guys have tools too. And the list of tools is getting pretty amazing. The tools on the dark web, like in Bohemia Market, they bundle them together. And some of these have been passed around for a long time, and they've gotten old and they're dirt cheap. Here's a new one. It's a bundle hacking toolkit to become a millionaire for $312.01. Kind of a interesting number there with the penny. But once again, I see these things out there all the time. And frankly, you know what? I know that people buy them because I occasionally do buy them myself, peel them apart, and find out this was rather interesting. And the tools that they're using are incredibly sophisticated, and you have to wonder if it was developed or put together by a nation state, a country who has the resources and funding to do stuff like this. So we're talking about the tools and the tools that are out there. Now we got to talk about the guides and tutorials. There's plenty of them out there. This is a crimeware kit that I bought. These are all the tools that are inside there. The guides and tutorials that came with this thing, amazing. I felt like I was going to go to a site where they were just going to be these cheesy videos and like instructions. No, I was completely wrong. They were really well put together. The videos that I saw, these guys could have been YouTube stars. The way they were talking about their product and promoting it, explaining the capability behind it, I was rather shocked. I was like, this is somebody who's got either way too much time on their hands, or they're making a pile of money because this stuff's actually working and paying off. So once again, the tools are getting better. They're guides and tutorials promoting the activity of threat actors, leading to more cyber incidents for all of us to be worried about. Now, the other thing that's out there as well, software as a service. So if you don't want to go through all the headaches of having software and having to learn it, there are sites like this that actually do ransomware as a service. So this is a site on the dark web. You go to the site, you're figuring out how to receive your product. You would put your email in there. Now, you wouldn't put your actual email. You put one that you have like anonymized or whatever. So you go to Gorilla Mail or Proton. And then what you do is you put the other stuff in there that you want to have as part of your ransom note. You want to talk to your victim, explain these details about what they want. The ransom amount and how they're going to pay you, the key that they're going to use to pay you, all that goes in there. The target operating system, you want a Windows machine, an Apple product, a Linux for that matter, you can have that. And then the file type that you want to put out as well. And for 300 euros in crypto, you can have a file that's going to allow you to spread to your victim and then hopefully ransom them for whatever you're trying to get out of them. So these are becoming more and more common. Unfortunately, too, the things that I'm seeing is they're working rather well. They actually function, and it's a frightening thought because now you're introducing something to allow somebody to get into a life of crime with almost no skills. This is an interesting thing too. So the threat actors and bad guys are kind of getting lazy. doing all the work themselves of encrypting and exfiltrating data, is clearly an effort. So they don't want to spend the time to break into their body and into their victim's network. They're buying access into a network through like access brokers. And here's a great example of want to buy RDP. So if you want to buy an RDP connection that's been either found or that's been propped up by a threat actor that's got inside of a network, you can buy this from these guys, and you log in and you put it in your shopping cart, pay them with crypto, and then the instructions and the information comes back to your bogus email account or alias account that you put together. And this is becoming more and more common. And it's not just for RDP, it's for all of the services as well. One of those services as well is spear phishing. So, if you don't want to go through the effort of spear phishing your victim, they've made it easy for you. Here's a service for you. You go to this site, once again, on a dark site, you go out there, you're going to hit victims of, let's say, Bank of America or a credit union or some other financial institution. It's as simple as drag and drop. You put everything together. There's language already put together for you, incredibly articulate. You populate the victims with all their emails and you push it out. And that's how these guys are doing things. And unfortunately, a lot of this stuff works. And phishing to this day is king. Without question, smishing, which is SMS phishing, also becoming incredibly popular, and even voice phishing, where they're contacting you by actually calling you and changing the dialect of their voice to get you to do something or manipulate you or social engineer you. So this is becoming really prevalent. Now, defeating systems. This is the frightening thing. Defeating systems that stop the threat actors, these guys are spending a lot of time and effort. And most recently, I found something called RAT. And this Pathfinder RAT, it allows them to do all sorts of things to gain control of not just the user's environment, but also their cell phone. And with RAT, I saw this, and it was kind of frightening. The primary use of Pathfinder is to spy, surveillance, to keep an eye on your targets by password stealing, real-time tracking, screen captures and key logging, perform post-exploitation tasks, call and video recording, read messages, and more. I mean, this is actually pretty scary. This allows them to actually somehow get this remote access Trojan on a phone. Predominantly, this thing's used for Android, but once they have that victim's phone, it phones back to our primary threat actor, and then he can track you and geolocate you. We can see the numbers that you're calling, the text messages coming into your phone. So think about this. You've got this on your phone. Your threat actor has visibility. He knows you bank at a certain bank. You've logged in with your credentials, but he needs access to, obviously, that 6-digit code for text messaging for MFA. Well, he's going to have that. He'll get that off of this tool. But then he's going to be in another country. So he's going to say, but they're going to see my activity coming in from Kazakhstan or Belarus or some other crazy place. So at that point, he geolocates you and say, yep, I'm in Hoboken, New Jersey, where our victim is. And at that point, he's able to log in successfully and do the things he wants to do. Tools like these, you got to wonder who's putting them together, but how they're making their way into the world of crime. And unfortunately, it makes them much, much more efficient. So in today's world, we've got a lot of things to be concerned about. I think, Matt, we're going to see triple-digit growth in the cyber incidents, moving out of 2023 into 2024. So really doing things to protect yourself, really doing things to prepare to make sure that you're not vulnerable will probably one of the most important things as companies progress, into the next few years. So with that, I know there's a lot of ways to protect yourself, and perhaps you can share with the folks out there on some of the things Winslow does to kind of help lock that environment down.
Yeah. So it certainly starts with like pen testing, right? So doing a penetration test or even starting with a vulnerability assessment really is kind of like the number one way to get started. And then following that, of course, is the different remediation services that we offer. So, like, I think this is key because I feel like everyone kind of knows the general definition of a penetration test or a pen test. But basically, like, what do you do next? Like, so Steve has appropriately scared you. I'm pretty scared, right? So like ransomware isn't just about locking up your machines anymore. I feel like it wouldn't surprise me if they abandon that altogether and they're like, that's too much work. It's too much work to deal with encryption keys. How about we just steal people's data, period, and threaten to release it, right? So that could be scary for a lot of people. I mean, imagine if they hijacked your payroll, or they hijacked like your order processing system, and they could see a whole bunch of information that you probably don't want on the web. So anyway, a whole bunch of stuff going on there. So what do you do after? Let's say you do your pen test, you figure out where all the holes are, how a hacker could get in. So after the pen test, it's really important to understand the findings, right? So really kind of know like what was going on there. And this is certainly where kind of like the Winslow Technology Group and our remediation services overlap with Steve's team over at Secure Network, where we jointly review and present the findings, make sure you really understand how the attacker got in, how their pen tester got in, to really know what was going on. Then prioritizing what's going on. So really understanding, what's a critical, what's a severity, what's like a nice to have, right? Like there's certainly a huge difference between a wide open unpatched Exchange server that you got hanging out there, and maybe like an internal SSL certificate that you haven't moved from, self-signed, like a PKI version, right? So certainly prioritization is really important. And then planning for remediation. So no one just like randomly like does this, right? So once you know what's going on, you've prioritized it, it's time to plan. So you really have to have some sort of strategy that aligns with each vulnerability. And you don't have to do this alone. This is exactly what our services are here to help folks with. And then of course the implementation of fixes. So this could be patches, configuration changes, some sort of like microcode updates. This is basically like going through systematically, like applying the fixes in the order that we've determined through the planning phase. I would love to say that all patches go perfectly fine and there's no fallout, but that happens like 80% of the time, right? Sure, Steve, you've seen this, and other folks too. Like there's generally always some sort of fallout from remediation services, right? Security is generally a balance between, functionality. If you locked everything down so much and applied so much security that people couldn't use the apps, you probably wouldn't be in business, and that's probably just as bad as perhaps a ransomware attack itself. So it's finding this balance. So within that balance, right, once you implement fixes, there's usually some sort of fallout, and we're here to help you with that too. So we're here, jointly, with Secure Network to help you before. So doing some pen testing, really trying to figure out where the vulnerabilities are and what could be exploited that maybe a vulnerability test didn't illuminate, to you. Understanding the findings, prioritizing, planning for remediation, implementing the fixes, and then sticking by you after the patches and whatnot are applied to make sure that things were, effective in their implementation, and make sure your systems are still stable and secure after patches are applied. Just a one-shot patch management routine generally works well, but that's just one shot. And as Steve talked about, these are ever-evolving risks. So we do offer co-managed service, and actually Steve's team too offers a subscription to their pen testing and vulnerability management services. So this is generally what the motion looks like, right? So we do the tick, so we'll do a vulnerability assessment and then a talk, and we'll move into our managed services to do remediation. Another tick, and after your vulnerability assessment's done and that's been remediated, we'll say, hey, Steve, bring your best, pen tester in, and we, take a look at the network, really understand what's going on. They're like, oh yeah, well, we got through with this, pass the hash attack, or this, move it situation, whatever. And then we remediate that. And then maybe, coming out of that, it's like, hey, it's time for a Windows Server OS upgrade. So, move into that, and so on and so forth. So there's this cycle of continuous assessment, continuous testing, but also continuous remediation. So where to start? And I kind of go back to my childhood with this, right? So watching like The Wizard of Oz, I don't know if the kids watch this anymore, but super simple. It's always best to start at the beginning, right? So this is a good place to start, and this would be our kind of prescriptive approach to just kind of getting started with pen testing and overall assessment. So first, we offer a no-cost NIST security evaluation. So that just takes about 45 minutes of your time, and after this, we'll tell you how to get teed up with that. We do suggest starting with a vulnerability assessment prior to pen testing, right? So a vulnerability assessment, if this was like your house, it's gonna like go through, and we're gonna take a look at all the windows and the doors and your locks, and just kind of like do a very holistic overview of kind of the external security posture of your house, I guess, in that example, and maybe your internal security posture of that house, right? And give you a report and say, hey, look, like these windows need to have the locks repaired. This sensor for your alarm system's not working, so on and so forth, right? You fix all that and you're like, all right, we think we've, trued up the ship. We're ready to go here. That's when we bring secure network in and we're saying, hey, Steve, you and your best pen tester, download a bunch of these kits, do whatever you got to do, see if you can break in. And they don't care about the vulnerabilities necessarily that were in the assessment. Their number one goal is really breaking in, right? And like it's usually very eye-opening activity, whether that's through social engineering, MFA fatigue, some of these newer vulnerabilities and kits that are available, so on and so forth. So, that would be up next. And then your remediation project. So based on the results, I suppose you could have a remediation project too as like a 2B if the vulnerability assessment was a 2A. But generally speaking, remediation project, having some sort of ongoing monitoring to make sure the effectiveness of the pen testing and your ongoing security program is doing as it should, and ongoing management services. And then last but certainly not least here, right, there is a chance something's going to happen. So I'm big on risk management and risk planning and taking a very risk focused approach to understanding where you stand, the cost to implement solutions, the value delivered, things of that nature. I can tell you that no risk is zero. So something always happens. You probably should have some version of incident response. So we do offer incident response. We actually partner with Steve and his team to deliver incident response services. And we have our own IRIS plan too, where we found that equipment is often, whether it's fully seized or it's suggested that the FBI or law enforcement take it, we found that often people need like loaner hardware, like switches and servers and like little NASs or something, just to get the business back up and running while you're doing your forensic analysis. We're happy to loan you equipment and infrastructure services under this IRIS program as well. So just again, where to start this NIST security evaluation, no cost to anyone. We've been doing this for a while now. We have, a bunch of questions that we'll ask you. It's about 45 to 60 minutes. You can ask us a bunch of questions with our security experts at the time too. We'll cover all areas of the NIST cybersecurity framework. You get a really nice report at the end, and there's no cost and no obligation for that. So if you want to just get started with something simple, you can use the webinars at Winslow TG link at the bottom there to get going with that. With that, I'll say thank you very much. And Steve, I guess it's time for us to have like an open discussion about this just for a minute. If you have any comments, go for it. I'm gonna pull up the chat here while you're looking at that, and then we can answer a couple questions if we have a few minutes left here.
So Matt, I got a question for you. A lot of the folks that we've seen in the last few years are all trying to get cyber insurance. How many people has Winslow helped? Because that's the thing with today is like, if you want to get cyber insurance, these guys will give you a form. And if you lie, you die on that form, I found out. Because the agents that I've talked to say, you got to be as truthful as you can. But I mean, a lot of the folks that you've worked with, what do they typically struggle with?
Yeah, I think they struggle honestly with the assessment services and like really understanding why they need a vulnerability assessment kind of like program, why they need to have that kind of structure around, and especially for smaller organizations that may not be used to such a structured like policy approach to managing things. But nonetheless, like, I mean, on that policy and that application, there's usually a whole section around like how you manage patches, how you do vulnerability scanning, and things of that nature. And you have to answer those questions. And to your point, you have to do it truthfully, or like when the time comes, like they're not going to cover that at all. And we have helped several. We actually fill it out. I'm sure you're a business too. I'm sure you've had to fill out similar forms too. It's interesting. We have to go through it as well, and we certainly help customers go through it.
There's trick questions on there too, because I was filling out one. It was like 7 pages. I didn't submit it because I went through the questions so many times, and after you read through them, you find out that wait a minute, well, this is what they actually meant. So, I'm just going to say this because I really think it's important. If you have a partner that can help you do this, like what you've done, it makes things go a little easier. I will tell you that that's the concern is when you get that notice back and what your premium's
Mhm.
going to cost too.
Yeah.
So
I,
I've seen it go up 30% year over year, even if you get
yeah.
100% of what you're doing. So
And coverages are going down, and I feel like it wasn't on that slide, but you really want your cyber insurance. It needs to be there. You got to have it. I mean, that's like your safety net. But it's like if you're in a car accident, God forbid, if it's a minor fender bender, like you weren't paying attention and backed over your neighbor's mailbox or something like that, you're going to try to settle that outside of insurance. And I think a lot of people are trying to do that too, and that's certainly what we would recommend. Certainly, if it gets to a certain size and scale, you'd have no choice but to get involved with that. But you do need it, and you do need to answer those questions truthfully. And if there's an answer on there that you feel like you're fudging, it's probably a sign that you need to do something a little more around there. So I feel like changing gears a little bit. This is a question that comes up often too. And there was a version of it in the chat here. So it's along the lines of like having an MDR service and whether or not they're able to detect a penetration test. And this is like interesting because we work with a variety of SOC as a service, MDR, XDR type platforms, and surprisingly, like they don't always detect pen testing. So I think there's two ways that you could handle that, and two ways I would advise the person asking the question or folks who may have the same question. So first is like, what is the purpose of the pen test? And what is the purpose of the pen test in the context of your SOC? Is it to test their ability to detect this, their ability to alert? And in that case, I wouldn't say anything. I would just see what happens, right? But if you haven't gone through a pen test before, or you haven't gone through a pen test with your SOC or MDR XDR provider, it's probably a good idea to like talk with them a little bit, let them know what's going on, because what that's going to do is that's going to tune them into the alerts, the systems. It's going to make sure you're properly onboarded, things of that nature. So I think there's like two answers. It's a really good question, something we talk about often, and I think there's two versions of it, and I would say the answer goes back to the reason why you're conducting the pen test. We do have a couple more questions here. One is the difference, again, between the vulnerability assessment and the pen test. So remember, vulnerability assessment, much broader picture, and a pen test is basically like much more focused, like, hey, let's let the hacker break in and see how far they get. So with that, Steve, I don't know if you have any closing comments, but I think we're just a little bit over time. So thanks everyone for hanging on. I think, Steve, you did an awesome job covering that. Really awesome, actually. Love seeing the screenshots and the real world like intel that you always provide. So thank you very much for that.
sounds good. Thank Matt. Thanks again, and once again, thanks the Winslow team for putting this together. Appreciate it.
You got it. All right. If anyone has any questions, phone number, website, and webinars at Winslow TG is on the screen here. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.